You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. In this episode, we'll talk about finances and how it's handled in Bryan's relationship. We'll spend some time talking about the value of having a big wedding. We'll talk about Bryan's view on leadership, especially how to handle that with an alpha woman, and the self-esteem that's associated with it. And finally, we'll talk about what it means to be a man in the context of a marriage, being a parent, and overall given the current times. So we're back. Glad to have you here. And one of the things I like to do is our quick fire round robin questions, where we talk through some things that people often talk about or have an opinion about, and just to get a baseline for what people that are married actually do. Yeah. And so these are going to be kind of short-ish answers for these, and then I typically pick a couple that we'll go back and spend more time on it, depending on how you answered it. Mm-hmm. So now it's time for the sharper quick fire round. Some of these, based off what you said, we kind of know the answer to it, but I'll ask anyway. Do you feel like it's necessary for your wife to be your best friend?
No.
Do you feel like your wife is your best friend?
Yes.
At what point, your story, but at what point did she become your best friend? Like your real best friend?
Yeah, my real best friend was let me see, my real best friend.
At what point did she become your best friend?
So I would say by the time I was it might have been college, honestly, because I had high school best friends, and that's when they started fading in the background. So maybe when I was maybe a junior in college.
Got you. Yeah. From a priority standpoint of love, is it wife over children or children over wife?
Wife over children.
Was when you guys got married, like ballpark range wise, how much you guys spend on the wedding?
Man, on the wedding,
yeah.
We spent about $30,000.
Okay,
or my father-in-law spent $30,000.
It didn't come out to assuming it came out of y'all's pocket. Was it back in the day? You had the
dowries and stuff.
Well, the woman's family paying for it. So
yeah,
the dad would pay for it. So he's like, "We good."
Well, at least my in-laws.
Well, back in the day, it was more of a common thing. Now it's like,
right? They don't do it. They don't do it.
I don't think they do it as much.
Man,
listen, you just got bread like that,
right?
But
yeah.
Let's say it came out of your wallet. Would you say financially it was worth it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Putting $35 up for that.
Yeah.
Okay. If you had a certain amount of money that you had to pick in either one of these categories, what would be the bigger or better, investment of money in a big ring or a big wedding?
Big wedding.
Okay. Do y'all do joint accounts or separate accounts?
Joint and separate, actually.
Did y'all start off like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to qualify that, joint account, I have a certain amount of money that gets diverted from the joint account into a personal account.
Yeah.
Just so if I want to, I can save up for my season tickets.
No one's asking you questions
right,
about that.
Nobody's asking me
questions.
Yeah.
Are you friends with or a fan of the in-laws, and how close are you?
Yeah, so I am a fan of the in-laws, and my father-in-law and I, we're fraternity brothers. We're really close. Mother-in-law and I are pretty close too. But we lived together for a little bit too, and that was really interesting. But that's another story. But yeah, I'm fans and close.
At what point did that closeness begin, or was it always from jump?
Well, I've always said mothers and teachers have always loved me my whole life. So when I first met my mother-in-law when I was in high school, we were cool back then. So it was in high school when I got to know them. And again, I was the friend, right? So I've them in that manner. So it was a very, very gradual thing for them too.
True or false? Guys mature later than women.
True.
Okay. When we talk about sex, ideally, how often would you like it? All the time, weekly, monthly, every now and then?
Weekly.
And what's the reality?
Yeah, weekly, easily. Okay. Probably, yeah, more than weekly. But because I told you I'm back. I'm back. I got grown kids now. I'm back.
These things on a 1 to 10 scale. How happy are you in your marriage overall?
10.
10. Mm-hmm. You're not just saying that for
No, I'm serious. Right. I'm on a run.
When you think about the last 17 years, what's the lowest you guys have gotten on the scale of 1 to 10?
4, maybe.
Okay. How would you rank the romance in your marriage currently on a 1 to 10 scale?
The romance. I'd probably say like 6.
Like we can be better. How much of your marriage is focused on like your day-to-day stuff?
On day-to-day, it'll
Like
probably be like 8.
8?
Yeah, because we're going through the day, for sure.
How much is focused on your kids?
7.
How much of it is focused on like your wife's career?
That's tough. I would probably, of our marriage that's focused on our careers, probably like 3 or something like that. Outside, like other aspirations, like service and stuff like that, it's probably more. It's probably like you're getting to like 5 or 6 because we do things like outside of work.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I also say, just for that context, you and your wife are probably more established in your career versus like trying to set your reputation.
Yep, for sure.
So it's a little bit, might be why it's a little bit lower now because you guys kind of established yourself.
That's true.
This no more scales, but how much you would say weekly alone time do you get with your wife?
Man,
not including sleep.
Look, and not including these past 2 weeks. I'd probably say how many hours of weekly alone time?
Yeah.
Man, honestly, it's probably not including sleep. We might get an hour a day
Of alone time.
Yeah, I mean, during the work week, and then maybe 3 hours on the weekends.
Gotcha. Who runs the show? You or her?
She runs the show.
What's your wife's greatest attribute?
Just her, like I said, her independence, like ability to get things done. It's the greatest attribute. And
then for you, what's more important, to be loved or to be respected? In the context of love, right?
To be respected.
Okay. Well, that was it. It wasn't too bad, was it?
No, that was easy.
Question.
Yeah.
Before we dive deep into some of these questions, I just want to let the listeners know a little bit more about our sponsor, Sharper Services. If times are tough right now, then I know how important saving money can be. Sharper Services, an ACN independent business owner, works with its clients to provide great rates on all home-related bills like electricity, cable, and internet. Check out www.sharperservices.com. That's Sharper Services with an S. To get a free quote and start the process to save money now. He provides this free of charge. It's super convenient, and he makes things hassle-free. Tell them the podcast sent you, and look for more details in the episode description. So you started talking about the joint account and stuff. I think it's good to talk about this because there's not like a book on how to like do finances. It's all also a leading indicator or reason for divorce. And so how did you guys get to, like, what is y'all's situation and how you guys do finances? And then how did you guys get to that point?
Yeah. So I think pretty much off the bat, we just got a joint account, and I don't know why. I was shocked that so many people don't, because most people I know don't actually do joint accounts. But basically, so I don't remember how we did it, but we ended up getting a joint account. We each are responsible for paying specific bills, and then and I would say overall, my wife kind of oversees everything, right? But I have to pay like my car note, my student loan, house note. She pays the rental house note, her student loans, and like a lot of the more miscellaneous bills, mainly because she's better at it than I am. I'll forget, So that's really where it came down to. She just had a better handle on it. Like I'm good with the big stuff, but the small stuff, I'll forget something. So that's how we did that. And then the other piece, since she's on the big, she handles all the small stuff too. That's one reason why it was easier for me to just have a certain amount of money that goes into another account so that I'm not throwing off the whole budget because I want to go out and I buy like sometimes like stupid stuff. Like I buy like t-shirts or something, but it's just, and I also, back to 95/5 rule, I don't care what she buys. I'm okay. But man, let me buy something. She's like, wait, hold on. What are you doing, Mama? What's going on? Do we have money for that? So it just worked. So it just kind of worked out that way.
So do y'all both put like direct deposit goes into the same account?
Yep. Direct deposit.
You have like a partition that goes out into.
So when direct deposit goes in, the big chunk goes into one of mine, goes into one account, small piece goes into another. Yeah. And then, and I know she has another account, but I don't know how much of her check goes into it, and she doesn't know how much mine goes into it either.
Y'all don't talk about it?
No. It's just, that's just trust.
So how do you know, like, you covering, like, how are you able to delineate what you're paying for and what she's paying for if it's like going all into one account?
We don't even care. And
just from the way you said, like, I'm covering this and this and that.
No,
but it's all going into like
it's
one.
not even that I'm covering it. It's just that I'm responsible for making sure that the bill is paid.
Oh, that it gets paid.
That it gets paid. Yeah, it's not. Okay. Yeah, it's not delineated at all. It's
just gotcha.
Out of
so
our
you
whole
just
budget.
Push the button and
I'm the one that goes onto the website and just make sure it's paid.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. That's a good distinction.
Yeah, for sure. Like, hold on, that's my money.
Do you feel like, okay, within that, on your side account, or like, how do you guys do gifts, and did that change with kids and stuff like that?
So we don't. That would come out of a joint account for the most part too. Yeah. Now, a lot of times I'll use my separate account for that, just because I don't want her to see it on the statement, or I might use a credit card to pay for it and then pay the credit card back from the main account.
Gotcha. You also said true that guys mature later than women.
Yeah.
Why?
So well,
help me understand.
Well, okay. So this is what I will say. I think that there are certain times when men are more mature than women are, but women mature first. So I think about like a 17-year-old man versus a 17-year-old woman. A lot of times the boy is a lot like, even now, I mean, they're just very immature, where the girl is more mature, and they're not as hyperactive and stuff like that. I think once you get to like freshman, sophomore year in college, a lot of times the girls are more immature, because it's like they get there and it's just like, and I mean, you even see where upperclassmen understand how immature the freshman girls are and that type of thing. And then I would say, if you're thinking about a college senior, I would think that the girl is actually more mature than the college than the boy is. And then but once you start getting up through like the 30s, I think that now men end up being a little bit more mature. It's weird. I just think that it goes back and forth.
It varies,
especially as it pertains to relationships, because I do think that I watch so many people, like I know people now who, like women who thought that they were just the stuff when they were in their 20s, and they were, right? And because they thought they were, they acted like they were, and
turn off.
Right, it was a turn off. And then now nobody wants them, and they want the same people, and we're like, nah. I mean, we got other folks, and they were so that was during their immature time. And a lot of times the guys around that age are they're a little bit more open to not being an ass or whatever. Yeah. And the other thing is that I see so many women, when you start talking about marriage and your time clock and all that kind of stuff, especially in the 30s, that are looking at things at immature things as they pick their mate. Right. Like I call the height requirement, like the sphinster maker, right? That height requirement, it's silly, but how many 30-something-year-old women do you know that still have a height requirement? And dudes aren't tripping on that. Like, what dude is saying, I would never date a tall girl? Like, not really.
We may have other requirements. Bro.
Yeah, maybe other ones. Yeah.
Height ain't gonna be the barrier.
Yeah, but like,
I always tell people that over time they trade in height for honesty. As they get older, like I can do 6 foot. Then they get to like 31. Like, as long as he's a little bit taller.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
My height with heels,
Hey, what do you think a man's version of the height requirement is?
Some guys are weight, I would say.
No.
Or size. Like, I think some guys are like that.
Okay.
Like, if someone made the case, like, oh, if a guy was trying to make the case that, like, you shouldn't cancel a guy because of height, right? I can see a guy, like, I can see her counters, like, well, guys do it on, like, on women and their size. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know what the rebuttal would be.
Yeah. No,
good rebuttal.
You see what just happened when you said it to me? I was like, oh, okay, maybe.
That makes sense.
Even though I will say, like I believe that there are men that for every body type of women. I know men who.
I was just giving one example, but there are
right.
some guys that like they might do the opposite end of the spectrum. With they might like the complete opposite.
Right.
And so I think it varies. But there's some guys that may have a hold on that, like women do height.
Got it.
I think that they're different. I don't other than picture taking and like societal standards that we see representative in media. I don't know what that effectively does for the relationship.
Right.
In the sense of like a guy can figure out how to get stuff from the top of the counter.
Right. Yeah.
He might need some assistance to get a chair or something, but he can figure it out. Whereas I think with a weight, there's some health reasons behind it. Like there's some people that are just more naturally heavy set. They work out, they're fit.
Yeah.
Like fit.
Yeah.
There's some people that are not. And so when you're talking about longevity in life, I think there's some aspects that play into that as well.
Yeah.
In addition to like attraction.
Yep.
But I get what you're saying about the height.
and the height thing is a lot more universal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
No, totally get it. The other piece I wanted to hit you on was why big wedding over big ring? 'Cause that tends to be like, I want this.
No, I'll tell you why. And this could be pretty personal. My wedding was probably one of the only times in my life where everybody I cared about was in one place, and I have the pictures to show it. That was my wedding. Was a time where like I'll go through my wedding pictures, and there's so many people that aren't even here anymore, and there are people in those pictures who I might not even associate with anymore because of family strife and stuff like that. And there's just something like. I feel like sometimes we devalue memories, and weddings make memories. They make memories like nothing else does in a way. And it's a time for your families to get together and your families to come together as a married couple. And especially when you're focused on the right things, that's a great way to solidify the bond between families. And then it also is I guess any wedding would be, but I feel like it creates kind of that boundary for your marriage where other family members are put on notice that this is the new unit. Yeah. And I think that's just a really important, some really important things. I mean, big ring, number one, and you could lose a ring, so that's why I say big wedding over big ring.
So someone may say, I think it's interesting that you say that we are losing value of the memories, especially like in this whole social media age where everybody's putting everything on.
Yeah.
But I do think there's probably a decreased sense of how much those are worth. But like, how much is it worth? Is it worth $35K? Is it worth $50K? Like, at what point is like, it'd be great, but I don't know if it's worth $100K.
Right. No. And now people are paying so much for weddings. Yeah. So I get it. I mean, I think 35, like when I was getting married, that was a lot, but now that's not a lot. Right. And rings too. I mean, I talk about rings are like computers.
6 months salary.
Yeah.
It's like 6 months salary.
But then the question becomes, a lot of it's about your motivation too. Yeah. I mean, if your motivation is just to show off your ring, then who cares? Like why do that? If your motivation is, hey, at least that's something that maintains some value and I can pass it on, but then who's ever going to extract that value from it? And is it, are you giving that to the next generation to pawn for money or and you're not, right? So, I don't think either one should be about the show. Either one should be about something that really matters to the couple. And I don't see where rings ever do that. Yeah.
One guy that I know has been married probably about 12 years. He's years back. He told me about his wife's ring. He said she had a nice ring, and she thinks I got it for her, but I got it for me. He said I wanted anybody who's going to try to shoot a shot to know what he's up against when he sees that ring. He better come with it.
That's all. He was joking.
He was joking.
I was like, or he's mad insecure.
He was joking. He was just like, I want guy to be unnoticed when he's going to shoot. He better come correct.
Right.
If he wants a chance to try to take away from this.
Only problem is that I know somebody who lost his wife to a Walmart bagger.
Oh, that's tough.
So it's not always about money. Look, he might have something else. What else you gonna do? Right?
Something he can deliver.
Right, exactly. You don't have to be
that
be
makes
rich.
sense. A couple of questions more around just how you see your wife and I'm trying to get more to like lessons you've learned along the way, doing it for 17 years that we just don't see as often. And so what have you learned from your wife? And how does she make you better?
Yeah, I've learned to listen. I've learned that I don't always have the best answer. It's funny when my wife and I bought our first house, we went out and we saw a couple houses and we saw this one house and I was like, oh, that's the one. I really want that house. And then she's like, no, I want to keep shopping. And I'm not a shopper. I'm like a buyer, right? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, we'll do it. So we see this look at some more, and then houses get nicer and nicer for less and less money, better this, better that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, she's right. This is good. Then we get to the house that is just like the perfect house. And they say, and we both love it. We've been looking for a long time. They say, you have to get it today or, the price is going up and we're not just trying to pressure you that, they're going to go up. And so she does the same thing. She's like, oh, I don't, I want to look more. And I'm like, no, this is the one. This is really the one. She's like, no, they're just playing where we can look some more. And so let's just look one more day. And I'm like, no, I really want this. We decide not to. And then come back and we're like, oh, we really like the house. But they're like, sorry, the price went up or whatever. I'm pissed, right? I'm pissed. And she knows I'm pissed. And she's like, hold on. So she goes back in the office when I'm outside. And I'm just fuming. And she went and got them to bring it down the other price or whatever. And what that showed me is like, she's a bomb in general because she just went and like made it happen. Yeah. But also that had I not listened, we would have had a much worse house. Had I not, right. And that just listening to that and understanding that if you have two people that are both strong and that are willing to stand up for what they think is right, a lot of times you can work together and create a better outcome for everybody. And I've taken that lesson into my workplaces, into other environments, because now I actually appreciate it more. And that was one of the most profound examples of it that I've used elsewhere. So that's what I've learned. That's probably the biggest thing that I've learned from her.
And so, in learning that, you mentioned, in some ways how your wife kind of is the general, you said, but how does she support you?
Yeah. So she supports me because when I'm out, and she'll say this, when I'm out trying to save the world, she has everything in order for me when I come back. I don't have to worry about my kids getting where they need to go. I don't like I talk about the vacations that we go on. I don't do anything but show up a lot of times. She has everything handled. So she provides that stability that I need to do these ambitious stretch things. And one time we had recently, because this is the other thing I'll tell you, 40 is an awesome age. It is incredible. It's such a I'm in the most liberated time in my whole life right now, because it's like you figure so many things out, right? And we woke up one morning and we're just laying in the bed and we just start talking about purpose, right? And I've always thought about, well, what do I want to do next? And I was like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. And I would talk to her and ask her what she wanted to do, and she's like, I just want to teach, and that's it. And I'm like, is that all you want to do? You just want to teach? Yeah, I just want to teach and I want to have a family. And I'm like, for real? I mean, that's it. I mean, what happens after that? Because you're not gonna have a family forever. You want to have kids forever. All this. She's like, no, that's what I want. And what we kind of came to was that when she thinks about her purpose, she's like, my purpose is to be that stabilizing force for the people around me. Like, that's my purpose. It's just to do that. Sure, my kids will be gone somewhere, but maybe I'll be helping you with some social initiative. Maybe I'll be doing some, but that's my thing. My purpose is to be supportive. So I'm like, my 19-year-old self, I was smart, man, because I didn't even know all that, right? Yeah. Or maybe just lucky, but she's the perfect person for me because both people can't be doing everything, and that's what she does.
And that's what I'm asking, like, what if it was a situation where she's equally or close to as like ambitious in the sense of do out in the world.
Yeah.
I think her ambition, from what I'm hearing, resides with the internally within her spaces. How can she deliver for those individuals? Where yours, a lot is out in the world. How could I deliver and be impactful there? What if both of y'all were like that? How would you guys find middle ground?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that smart people kind of figure that out. Probably there always has to be some give and take, and people, and that's one of the things that's really tough about even like when people ask for advice about things is that in so many cases the answer is it depends, right? It depends on the people. It depends. I mean, like almost every time, right?
It's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And oftentimes the best people to figure that out are those that are in that situation. But what I assume is that there needs to be some give and take, or you need to find out where the gaps are, right? Because there always will, because if you think about a household, you think about a family, there are certain bases that need to be covered and can't slip through the cracks. If both of you are doing that, then you have to build something in that catches the other stuff. Either you have a nanny, or you have family that's around that's going to help you, or you have to provide something else. And actually, I know some people who do that. A good friend of mine, big top executive at a big athletic company right now. Husband is also very ambitious, and they're rarely home. They have a nanny though. Nanny takes care of stuff.
Yep.
And that's what they do. So you just have to figure out how to build in the systems to catch the rest of the stuff that needs to be done.
No, that's real. I was going to ask you, you seem, and I don't want to put the answer in your mouth, but you seem like leadership. I know leadership's important to you, and I would imagine that as a black man, being that focal point of leadership or representation of leadership is important to you. Correct? How do you allow yourself to be that representation of leadership while your wife in your household runs it for you?
Yeah.
And how do those mesh? Like I ask because I think people are trying to figure out how do I be the leader, but someone else may run the household.
Right.
But some guys may want to do both or like it that way. Like how do you marry the two?
Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that. And oftentimes, like in a Christian context, that ends up, causing some types of friction, right? And in my marriage, one of the things that happens even more recently that we've been trying to reconcile is, I talked about my wife is going to go to heaven, and hopefully I make it there with her, right? So she really wants me to take the lead in prayer a lot of times, and sometimes I'm like, it just doesn't. I don't think about it as naturally, like every day, every night to pray with the family and stuff like that. And when the kids were younger, we did it all the time, but as they've gotten older, not as much. And she's like, I want to get back to that. And you're supposed to be the head, so you should be the one that's doing it, even though she has the inclination to do it. Yeah. So this is where it comes down to us. I'm like, well, do we want it done, or do you want me to do it and get it done? And what is it going to be? And so we've had to like flex that a little bit. What I think a head can mean a lot. It could be defined differently. You could be the chair or the president of a company, and the vice president, and you're the figurehead, and the vice president is the head, is actually doing everything while you're out front, or you might set the strategic vision, and then you see this other person as someone who contributes to that vision, but that also is more of the executing person. And we had that conversation too. It's like, and the tithe thing is a perfect example. I was the one that she was really like afraid to give 1/10 of our money to the church every month. Right. And I was just like, no, we really have to do it. We really have to do it. Which is kind of ironic because she's like, to say that, but this was earlier on. And I wasn't too pushy about it, but I put it out there, and then over time she picked up on it. But who writes the check now? My wife does every single time. So you might say because she's writing the check, she's the head, and she does. I mean, that's the operations part. But I was the one that put it out there, and so, but a lot of it, man, is gets down to how it's like self-esteem. You know, I do think that sometimes you have people who, because they feel inadequate in some way, they want to overcompensate by beating their chest and saying, "Oh, I'm the leader and you need to follow me," or, you know, "I'm looking for a wife that's going to follow me, and so you need to submit to me." It's like, no, really, you should submit. You should be submitting to each other.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, you both submit, and so so that's what I see as leadership. It's not necessarily leadership is the one that's gonna be responsible for setting the vision in a way that's for me. And, you know, the other stuff is, you know, the operations of it. 95% of the time she's going to get her way, but I got it on the 5, and the 5 are usually big. And that's just the way I personally define it and balance it.
No, that makes sense to me. And, you said something that triggered a thought, and it was around just kind of that decision making, and also more specifically with the prayer stuff. Mm-hmm. So how are you guys working through that? Like, that's a tangible kind of ongoing thing. How are you working through? Well, I know my wife wants this out of me. Right. It's not a extreme request. Like, she ain't tripping by asking me to lead it. But I also recognize that's not my natural inclination. Mm-hmm. How do you actively like work on it, or, you know, get to find a happy place?
Yeah. So for that specifically, what you know, I think about root cause a lot of times, and I think about so the prayer is actually the behavior that she wants to see, but for me, I need to put more. I need to make sure that the content that I'm consuming is aligning me with that. So my thing is, and this is how I think too, it's like, all right, I need to get closer with God. I need to like read the Bible more, right? I need to turn off the radio or listen to more spiritual music or something like that. I'm
start sending you like clips. Now I'm gonna start sending you like good things that I see. I always see like good like 2-minute, 10-minute like preaching, like
sermons,
sermons that are just like, oh, that was good to just hear in the moment.
Absolutely.
When I get them, I'm sending it to you.
No, I want you to, but that's the thing. It's like if you change your content, that's going to change your thoughts. That's going to change your conduct. And for me, so my focus can be on, because I know for myself, I really want to get back to, you know, being more strongly versed in the Bible. There was a time in our marriage where I was the main person that was in the Bible. Like, I could tell you everything. Yeah, I was, and it was just one of these times where I'm just fascinated by what's going on, and that's when we were doing the prayer and all that kind of stuff. But I've strayed because of time and just prioritization. So that's how I do it. It's like, okay, let me focus. Sure. And I'll try to remember, and then I'll do it. And then she's like, "Oh, great, you did that." But I did tell her, I'm like, "Hey, sometimes you're going to have to do it until I get there." Yeah. And then my focus is on how do I change my content? And we're coming up on, we do, for my church, we do 40 days of fasting and prayer, right? And so that's one of the times where in my mind, I'm like, all right, that gives me an opportunity to reset from a spiritual perspective. Yeah. And I fully intend to do it more then, and then continue on leading prayer through that 40 days.
So I tend to think, especially when you start living with someone, and probably even more when you have kids, the kids that are like older, a lot of your relationship becomes consumed by the business and the operations of the marriage, because like things just got to get done. Right. We need to figure out who's doing it. And so how do you balance between the business, or have you, because it's a continuum, like you get better, I would imagine, or hopefully get better over time. Yeah. But if you think back to your relationship so far, how have you guys tried to find balance between like the business of the relationship with the fun and of it as well? I know now on this stage you guys are having more, but can you talk about the journey to get to where you are right now?
No, I think it's just like, it's kind of like work. Like when you think about your job, like for me, February is just crazy. It's just crazy. Like I know there isn't a whole lot of personal time in February just because of the demands of the job in February are such that I'm not going to have a lot of personal time. I'm not going to have a lot of mental health time even on the job. Right. But I do understand that in March, it's going to be a little less. And then by May, it'll be, even less. And I think that there is in some ways a somewhat cyclical nature of things. Around the holidays, you're going to get some time off, right? Yeah. And so you get some time there. You some of it is getting through like understanding your rhythm in the patterns, and then knowing where you're going to fit those things in. Like I said, we will go on a trip, for example, and then it's like finding small moments in between, but I think that the concept of balance isn't realistic for most people, right? I mean, is that the way that you balance is that you go hard here for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't mean balance by like 50-50.
Right. How do you?
If you see one falling, you got to kind of
absolutely
re-level it.
Yep, and that's what it is. It is a constant recalibration throughout. But sometimes you understand this is just going to be kind of low, and then. I do think like the communication piece is important, and that's hard, especially, you're asking how much time, we spend together. Yeah. Like right now, man, I haven't seen my wife for much.
Yeah, I'm taking
so I appreciate it. Yeah, of course. But that's what happens. It's just being, well, number one, just being intentional. Like if you never really know, or it's not even on your radar, then you can't do anything.
Yep.
And so that's how you balance. Be cognizant of it, and then just work on it.
In working on it, though, and you mentioned intentionality. Like, which one do you think requires more? Like thinking about the day-to-day stuff and making sure that it's running seamlessly, or the romance fun? Because it's not that your wife's waiting for that one trip of romance, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, which one do you feel like for you, or to continue success in your marriage, requires more intentionality?
Yeah. And you say which one between
like figuring out the business part of it and make sure that's running well, or the romance fun part?
Yeah. Well, I think that the romance fun part, probably, I would say that takes more intentionality, but she probably might disagree because she's the one that is running things most of the time. So I would probably say that it's probably the romance fun part that takes more intentionality, because that I think can go by the wayside a lot more. You don't want to let your kids down. You can't. You have to keep the bills paid. You want to keep the lights on, and sometimes you forget about one another through that process. So I do think that kind of the romance and the connection probably you have to force yourself to be more intentional about it.
I want to be mindful of time, so I just got a few more questions before we wrap up. When you think about it, all in all, right? Like, why did you get married?
Wow, that's a good. That's a great question. I think that everything in nature is meant to evolve. It was just an evolution. It was like that. Like that felt like the natural next step. And I talked about it before. That's not necessarily like what I was exposed to growing up, because my parents that I was in the house with every day, like I don't like my biological parents, I never remember them even being together. Yep. My stepfather and my mother were never married, right? So you don't have to be married, but for me personally, I just felt like that was the natural next step. It was like, first we dated, first comes the love, then comes the marriage, then comes the baby and the baby carriage. Just like, it just felt like that felt natural to me. And I hear people that don't want to get married, and I used to say, well, why not? But again, I think that people have to find the types of relationships and the structure that works best for them. And for me, it was get married. The other piece to that, though, that I will say is that there are some financial benefits to being married. Yeah. There are some legal structural things where in doing that, it's smarter to do it. And someone might say, oh, well, I can do all that and just have a domestic partnership and sign a bunch of contracts. I'm like, well, you might as well get married.
Yeah,
What's the problem?
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, there are, some of those more rational reasons. And those definitely factored in, as well for me.
Do you think not like seeing marriage in its like formality, formality, I guess that's the word. So you say you didn't remember your biological father and mother being together, and then your stepfather, and technically he's not your stepfather.
He's not. He's like my bonus dad. Yeah. Stepfather. He's actually, technically, I just call him my dad. Yeah. So yeah,
the guy that assumed that role, and your mom never were married. Do you think because of that, it was more important for you, or it became a little bit more of a bigger deal?
Not really.
Never thought about it.
No. Well, and here's the other thing. So I also had a pretty big extended family too. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. So my grandparents were married for forever. For over 50 years. So I don't. To me, it. And what's funny is I do remember talking to my grandmother one time and telling her, I'm going to get married and then I'm going to have kids just like you. I do remember saying that to her. So maybe it was them
seeing that and not seeing it.
Right. But my wife, she actually did, her parents were married. Yeah. So for her, I'm absolutely sure that was not, that was the norm. And I think that I may have been fine either way, but I also, there's a part of me that just, that was just what I thought was the next step in the evolution, and it felt right when we were doing it.
And so when you think about how you feel, as a man, and just in the context of being a man, a black man, what does it mean to you to be a man in your relationship? And we can break it down in layers of being a man in your marriage, being a man in terms of a father, and then just a leader of a household. Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so a few things. One, in my marriage, it's being that person that makes my wife feel safe, and that makes her feel valued, and makes her that protects her from shame and negativity just in general, that loves her. And, that's from a husband standpoint. From a father standpoint, it's being, because I have two daughters, it's being the model of a man that I want them to look to be a husband one day. I think a big part of a man's role, whether you're married or not, is to, and actually women's too, but just from a male standpoint, since we're talking about that, is to demonstrate how a man is supposed to treat a woman in the way that you treat that child's mother, whether you're with her or not. But you have people that are like, oh, I take care of my kids. Yeah, but if you're treating the mom like trash, then are you really being a man? And I understand that things could go awry or whatever, but I believe as a man, a big part of your role and as a father is to demonstrate to those children how men treat women and what a relationship should look like. Right. So there's that. And to love my daughters in a way where they're not looking outside for validation, for love, to feel complete. Like one thing about my wife, she loves her father, and her father has always been there for her and has always, is one of her favorite people. And that's what created the type of woman that she is, where she doesn't need me. She's complete, right? She's like I'm just bonus, right?
Nice to have.
Yeah, I'm a nice to have, right? And she'd never say that, but really, she's emotionally stable and obviously
can get it done.
It can get it done, and so that's what I feel like as a man for my family. The third thing I would say is in a community, especially as a black man, we didn't talk a lot about like the social justice stuff and the boards that I'm on and stuff like that, but we have a responsibility to our broader community, and we have a responsibility to look past our own, the success and fruitfulness of our own families to change the way that to change the overall condition of Black people, right? And that means that we should be spending some of our time doing something other than taking our children to soccer practice, other than sitting down and watching football and stuff like that. Like it's incumbent upon us to do more to advance our condition as a people, because if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it. And if you know anything about our history, there's more that has been done and that's actively being done to suppress our citizenship and our rights than anybody else. And we make it so much easier when we're so caught up in distractions. Yep. And so, and that's another thing that I just think as men we need to do. And we also need in that area, we need to understand and value the strength and just excellence of Black women. Like, Black women get it right every time. Yep. You talk about politics, they get it right every time. Like you don't, they're not, and I love the Black Panther movie. Black Panther changed my life when I saw it. And I'm working on a social initiative that has the term Wakanda in it, because it was so symbolic of so many things to me. But one thing was that you notice when everybody else like turned on T'Challa and everything, and it was going bad, it was the sisters who were like, wait, hold up. They were the first ones that were like, wait, no. And we're never really down with it in the first place. And we need to understand, because, throughout history, you always hear about the men. It's always been the women that were really, you talk about leadership, right? The men were seen as the leaders, but the women were really the ones leading. And they were the fabric. And we need to, as we're trying to, change our condition and improve our condition, we need to make sure that we're elevating our sisters throughout that process too.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think all the things you said were spot on there. One of the things you mentioned as you're talking about your wife and what you feel like you need to provide for her, you said security, protection. You also said that she's valued. And there was another thing you said around basically around like protection of how she feels and things of that nature. How do you reconcile that? I understand what you're saying with also, I guess, my belief that like you're supposed to be your partner's mirror. And so you're supposed to challenge them in certain ways that they may not be strong yet to help them be better. Yeah. And point those out so that they're being exposed like in-house versus out of the house. But sometimes it may not be taken, received with the same kind of love. Yeah. Or I feel valued in this moment of criticism. Yeah. So how do you balance those two, or provide, or do you believe that that's important?
No, I mean, I think that you have to always find the way that's right for her, because I don't think anybody likes criticism. We don't. Yeah, and nobody really likes feedback. As much as people say it, most part, like not naturally. You could
degrees of acceptance.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, like you have to work at accepting feedback. So I think that for my wife, it's just like I have to do it a little bit at a time, and I'll say things over, I'll try to say a little bit, and then things will keep going, and then something else will happen. I'm like, see, there's this. But I try not to do it too much, because if you overdo it, then now, it becomes a problem, because we say this all the time. I'm like, you don't want anybody telling you what to do. Like, you'll tell me what to do all the time. You have to be receptive to feedback too. But I understand how she is, and so I can only sprinkle, a little bit here and there. And my number one priority isn't to change her. My number one priority is to edify her and to help her to, like I said, feel secure. And a lot of it isn't. I mean, like I said, I adore her. I think that she's way better than I thought that I would get. Like, if I were ever to sit down and think about it, it's like, yeah, she's, If I wasn't with her, she'd find somebody better than me before I found somebody better than her, right? And I really believe that. And so I am the person that's like, oh, you look so nice in that. And she's what I like too. That's the other thing. I think it's important, man. You have to find what you like. Like, don't you talk about settling and stuff like that. I think that, especially from a physical perspective, it's like a car. Like if you might have I remember my first Acura that I got. And it wasn't all tricked out, but you know what? That thing had the leather seats. It had the windows. It had the heated seats. It was the color I liked. It had a sunroof. And even when it was old and there were all these other cars, I was cool. Newer model came out, but I was good because I still had my sunroof. And I think that's important too, that you find somebody that you like and that you're attracted to, that you can be truthful as you share that stuff.
Yeah, sprinkling compliments.
Yeah,
really mean it, though.
Exactly.
The last two questions. You have kids. You have two girls. And so 14 and 12?
11.
11? And so what advice... I usually ask this to people that don't have... or their kids are like babies.
Yeah.
So now that they're broaching these age, like what advice do you give or would you give your daughter in the future around like dating?
Well, this is what's funny. So I talked about my 11-year-old who loves me to death. I went to this talk from this woman who had been jailed. Kimba Smith is her name. I don't know if you ever heard the story. And she got pardoned by President Clinton to get out of jail, but she had gotten into this really abusive relationship and got put in jail because she was selling drugs and stuff like that. And when I went back to my kids and I was like, look, I said, because I wanted them to be there, they weren't there, but I was like, look, when you find a boyfriend or a husband, I want you to find somebody that will treat you the way that I treat your mom, right? That I've said that to them from a relationship standpoint. And my littlest one was like, I'm gonna marry you, Daddy. What are you talking about? I was like,
you're like, great answer.
I was like, oh, great answer. And she was so serious, but she doesn't really get it. But that's really so that's what I told them from a relationship standpoint. But to be honest, like right now with my kids, I'm really, especially with having having black girls, I'm about making sure that they are full people, that they're fully formed in a way that they bring 100% to that relationship, because people that have healthy self-esteem have stronger relationships. So I have very little advice for them, other than find somebody that's going to treat you right and that type of thing.
But when you think about like them at 21, 27.
So them at 21, 27. So this is another thing. Yeah. So I think that there are certain times in your life when you're going to have very fruitful like pools of eligible people, right? And one is in college. And then if you do grad school, it's in grad school. Like it should at least be on your mind. You should be at least open to finding someone long term during those times, like especially grad school. And if you go to a school where you had to work first and then you go, it's like you've had a lot of time to play around. Like hopefully at that point you're at least open to it. You're not like, oh, I'm just not going to get married. If that you don't want to think about it too late, just because that window does close. The next thing you know, you are just on the apps and you are dealing with some of those things. So that's another thing that I will be very intentional about. Not saying you have to go
grad school.
You
better be out there looking.
No. Well, and not you better go find your husband, but thinking, look,
be open.
Be open. Yeah, be open. And then the other thing is to look past the superficial, which is that's like table stakes. You say that, but it's just like had my wife not been willing to let me out of the friend zone, or if she had said, oh, I can't date my friends, then we would have never been together. Like sometimes the label is a bit superficial. It's like, well, what is that person like? Like, could you be open to them? What's wrong with, And I do think, I think that people should, date their friends more, honestly. But
I think you're going to be less likely to do some dumb stuff.
Exactly.
As it pertains to it. Because you have respect for that relationship over
absolutely.
Everything. Yeah. Last one is just, if you had a boy, or, I don't know if you're still trying, but if you had a boy, or do in the future, what advice would you give them? 20, 22, 24?
Yeah. So we're not having any more kids. I wanted one for a long time and wanted to try for a boy, but now my kids are so self-sufficient. I do have a godson, and my friend who I told you died, his son was my godson when he was named my godson when he was a really little baby, when he was first born. And he's 21. He just turned 21. And so I've talked to him a lot about relationships. He was dating somebody he was dating somebody really seriously, and then, recently broke up with her. But, my thing is, it's somewhat similar, man. It's just like, you want to treat them the way that your dad, treated his wife, or, a lot of times it's situational. I'm like, you do want to find somebody that's your friend. Strap up. Yeah. So, are you doing it? Wrap it up. Are you doing those types of things? But I do have some more of those conversations. Then with boys, there is, look, don't put yourself in a situation where you're compromised. Yeah. Right? And he's older now, right? Yeah. Like I'm sure when my girls get a little older, I'll talk to them about it too. But it's like, this Me Too thing is big, and don't be the one getting caught up because you weren't really thinking. And respect whoever you're with, and we have the consent talk and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I do have those conversations with him, and it's told a little bit differently because of the gender and because of his age, but I'm happy that he's a full person too, and I think that he's equipped to be in healthy relationships, and that's important.
No, that's real, and I appreciate your time. There's so many more things we could have talked about, like you getting over like the fact that wanting a third child, and then getting to a point where you don't anymore in that conversation, or even social media with the kids, and what they see. So we're gonna have to bring you back and continue talking. But
I can talk forever. So yeah, I'll definitely come back.
I definitely appreciate it. Appreciate your time and your wisdom.
Thank you, and let me say I'm proud of you because just like you opened, you told me that you were thinking about a podcast, and I can't tell you how many people are finna people. I'm finna do this, I'm finna do that, and then they don't do it. And the fact that you've done it is just a testament to your dedication and your ability to get things done. And we need more people like that. So congrats.
Appreciate it. Man, you're about to make me blush. I'm glad we had the time together. It's always good talking to you. And I think, I appreciate the fact that you were able to share so much wisdom and provide so many nuggets after 17 years of marriage. I just want to continue to wish prosperity on your marriage and success. We need more stories like this. This is part of why I do what I'm doing, because I think these lessons learned normalize the challenges that occur in marriage, and people can see the light afterwards. And so I just want to continue to thank you for your time and sharing your story. I hope everyone else enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm looking forward to next week when we have a new guest. So make sure you tune in, tell a friend, spread the word. This is how we keep it going and keep the lights on here. If you support me, you support the podcast, make sure that you are following on Instagram at Think Love Wife and subscribing to the podcast on your preferred platform. Be sure to tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Make sure they subscribe, make sure they follow so we can keep it going. And until next time, next week, I'm excited for the next guest. But you know what it is. I hope the conversation keeps going.